It all kicked off with the scream of tires grinding against gravel, a car door's sharp slam, and the defiant clack of high heels strutting over dirt like they owned the earth. I was elbow deep in chicken feed, lost in a tune I was humming, when I spun around to see a gleaming white Lexus parked dead center in front of my barn doors. Not off to the side, not nearby, no, precisely blocking both sliding doors like it was a calculated move. I squinted, wondering if the driver was lost or maybe having a breakdown. Then I saw her. Karen. Platinum bob haircut, oversized sunglasses, a floral blouse screaming suburban brunch, and a steaming travel mug gripped like a queen's scepter. She stood there, scanning my land as if she were mentally redecorating it, completely ignoring me, and the growing uproar of 23 roosters inside the barn, losing their feathered minds. I approached slowly, brushing feed dust off my hands, bracing for a civil chat because you always start polite, even when you know it's pointless. "Morning," I said, calm and measured. "You're parked right in front of my barn, ma'am. I need to open it to let the animals out." She didn't glance up, didn't even twitch, just sipped her coffee, gave a vague nod and said, "It'll only be a minute. I'm waiting for someone. Also, you should really repave this road. It's a disaster." I blinked, unsure if she was joking or just detached from reality. "This isn't a road," I said, forcing a grin. "It's a private farm path. Leads straight to my barn, which you're blocking." Her smile was cold, not reaching her eyes. Well, community paths should stay accessible. I read the HOA bylaws. I stared, grappling with how to explain that this wasn't her neighborhood, and her HOA had no power here. This land had been my family's for 3 generations. No amount of glossy HOA pamphlets or suburban swagger could change that. But she didn't care. She turned away, raised her phone, and started snapping selfies with my barn as her backdrop. Inside, the roosters grew louder. Reggie, the head rooster, was ramming the door, his furious squawk cutting through the chaos. They sensed the morning routine was off, and they weren't happy. I sighed, stepping back to think. I could try reasoning, but her bubble was logic-proof. Calling the sheriff over a parked car felt excessive. For now. So I waited. She scrolled, sipped, smirked, and refused to budge. 45 minutes dragged by. The sun climbed, the heat rose, and flies buzzed around us. A milk delivery truck came and left, unable to turn in. My chores piled up behind that Lexus like a damned river. Finally, she tossed her empty mug into... My hedge slid back into her car. No apology, no explanation, just a smug wave through the window, and peeled off down the path like she'd done the world a favor by gracing it. On the ground where she'd stood, a crumpled, half-soaked HOA newsletter fluttered. A post-it note stuck to it. "Let's keep shared spaces beautiful." Scrawled below was her name. Karen Wellington, HOA Vice President. That's when the spark ignited. I wasn't mad. Not really. I was intrigued. She thought my farm was a shared space. She believed she could stretch her suburban rulebook into the heart of rural farmland. That was the real issue. Most newcomers near farms try to blend in, or at least stay out of the way. But Karen, she carried entitlement like a prized heirloom. My barn was her photo prop, my land an accessory to her lifestyle. She had no idea what kind of storm she'd just stirred. I strolled back to the barn, cracked the sliding doors just enough for Reggie to poke his head out. He glared at me, puffed his feathers, and let out a single, rebellious cluck. He wasn't just a rooster. He was a feathered warhead with talons and territorial fury. Behind him, 22 others paced, wings flapping, waiting for their moment. I tossed a handful of feed near the edge, crouched beside Reggie and murmured, "Don't worry. Bal, your spotlight's coming." The plan wasn't clear yet, but the seed was planted. That was enough. The rest of the day, I tackled chores as usual, but my mind was electric. I dug out an old notebook from the workshop and started mapping the barn entrance, the path's curves, the coop's timing, the gate's mechanics. I wasn't a prankster by nature, but I believed in natural consequences. When you block the wrong barn or rile the wrong rooster, you'd better brace for a flurry of feathers. That evening, as the sun sank and the chickens settled, I sat on my porch with a coffee and a sly grin. I pictured Karen returning tomorrow. Another excuse, another brunch, another carload of selfie-snapping friends. Maybe she'd bring her HOA posse. Maybe she'd try hanging decorations. Either way, the barn wouldn't be quiet, and the roosters wouldn't be tame. The farm had defenders now, feathered, fierce, and fed up. As dusk cloaked the fields and the last rooster let out a long crow, I leaned back in my chair and said to no one in particular, "She wants a photo op? Fine. Let's give her a spectacle she'll never forget." Reggie answered with a booming squawk from the barn, and I knew this wasn't just personal anymore. It was war. The Great Rooster Rebellion was about to erupt. 2 days passed without it. A hitch, and I almost convinced myself Karen had seen the error of her ways. Maybe she'd found a new backdrop for her selfies, one that didn't involve illegally blocking my barn. But hope is a risky bet with people who think they're never wrong. At exactly 9:07 a.m. on Thursday, I heard the familiar purr of that Lexus engine, followed by the crunch of tires on gravel. I didn't look up from my porch until I heard not one, not two, but 4 car doors slam. I stood and peered across the field. 4 SUVs were lined up along my barn side entrance, 2 parked half on the path, 1 blocking the barn doors again, and another clogging the hayloading zone. Out stepped Karen, and 3 women draped in beige and lavender, all sporting wide-brimmed sun hats, oversized sunglasses, and clipboards. They looked like a squad of HOA influencers staging a pastel coup. Karen spotted me and waved with fake warmth. "Good morning," she chirped, like we were lifelong pals. "Just doing a quick site visit. 15 minutes max. You don't mind, do you?" Before I could answer, one woman unrolled a measuring tape across my fence, muttering about aesthetic ratios. Another popped her SUV's trunk, unloading what looked like floral garlands and collapsible wooden arches. My brain stalled. I approached slowly, dodging rooster droppings, and said firmly, "Karen, what exactly are you doing on my property?" She smiled, unfazed. "Oh, we're planning a quaint rustic social for the HOA committee. Nothing big, just a light brunch and some networking. Your barn's so picturesque, it's perfect for our vision." She handed me a trifold pamphlet. HOA Community Unity Brunch, complete with an RSVP list and a stock photo of a barn that looked eerily like mine. My eye twitched. "Karen," I said, choosing each word like stepping on thin ice. "You realize this is private property, right? Not a shared space, not community land, my farm. You can't plan events here." Her smile didn't waver. "Oh, don't be difficult. We're all neighbors here, fostering harmony. Besides, you weren't using this space this morning, were you?" Another woman piped up from across the field. "The lighting's divine at this hour." I turned, walked back to my porch, my blood simmering, but my face stone cold. Anger was what she wanted. I needed something sharper. If you want to fight a rooster, you don't shout, you strategize. As I sat, I flipped open my notebook. Phase 1 had been testing the waters. Now it was time for Phase 2. Reggie and his crew were restless, their morning. Routine disrupted again, their crowing hitting riot pitch. They paced inside the barn like inmates plotting a breakout. I jotted down ideas. Timing was everything. A perfect ambush needed rhythm. Later that day, I drove to town, grabbed feed from the co-op, and ended up chatting with old Mr. Raleigh, who ran the general store and doubled as the town's gossip hub. He leaned in and whispered, "Heard that HOA lady's trying to register your barn as a shared use facility." My jaw dropped. "She's telling folks she's in talks to open it for public use. Says it's underutilized." I laughed out loud. "It's a working barn with roosters," Raleigh snorted. "Doesn't matter. She's calling you part of the future of community inclusiveness." When I got home, I found a small lawn sign staked at the edge of my path. future site of HOA rustic community events. Stay tuned. My eye didn't just twitch, it spasmed. That was it. The line was crossed, the warning ignored. Now came the counterstrike. At dawn, I left the barn doors cracked just enough. Reggie stood at the edge like a sentinel, the others lined up behind him in a tight formation. I scattered a thin trail of feed toward Karen's usual parking spot. I didn't need to say a word. They knew. Instinct maybe, or pure vengeance. Karen rolled in late, yapping on her phone, oblivious to the shadows shifting in the barn. She parked even closer to the doors this time, like she was daring me. She stepped out, heels sinking into the mud, phone raised for the perfect selfie angle. That's when Reggie struck. He strode from the barn like a warrior, feathers fluffed, eyes locked, claws clicking. Karen lowered her phone, confused for a split second before she realized a rooster was charging her. She yelped and stumbled back, as Reggie pecked her tire with surgical precision. 3 more roosters followed, circling the Lexus like vultures. Karen scrambled into her car, face red with panic, honking wildly as if noise would scare them off. But they didn't flinch. They stared. Roosters smell weakness. Reggie flapped his wings and leaped onto her hood. Her scream carried across 3 fields. She reversed so fast, she nearly smashed her own brunch arch, sped down the path, and left a cloud of dust and shattered pride. I watched from the porch, sipping coffee, silent. I raised my mug to Reggie, who clucked triumphantly. That night, a formal HOA letter arrived, stamped with pompous letterhead. It read, "You are hereby warned for exhibiting aggressive animal behavior in violation of residential harmony standards." I framed it above the barn door. Reggie crowed at it the next morning, like it was a trophy. The war wasn't over, but the first real blow had landed. She knew what she was up against now. The next morning felt different, heavier. The sky was clear, the breeze gentle, but a strange tension hung in the air, like the hush before a storm. I knew she'd be back. Karen wasn't the type to retreat after one scare. Her entitled engine was just warming up. By noon, I heard engines again, but this wasn't a solo act. 3 SUVs, 2 sedans, and a van rolled up, parking with zero regard for boundaries, tires gouging my cornrows. This wasn't a brunch or a photo op. It was an invasion. Karen emerged, sporting a sun hat the size of a UFO and clutching a clipboard. She didn't even glance at me, standing motionless on my porch, arms crossed. Her crew, dressed like they'd stepped out of a real estate ad, began setting up folding tables, stringing pastel bunting between my trees, and rolling out fake grass mats near the barn. Someone hooked up a Bluetooth speaker, and soon, soft. Jazz drifted across my field. I hadn't seen this coming so fast, but she was escalating, boldly. To her, this was a conquest, not a clash. She wasn't retreating, she was claiming ground. I didn't yell. I collected evidence. I circled the perimeter, filming every car, every license plate, every decoration, every guest trespassing on my land. I checked the coop. The roosters were eerily quiet, watching me through the wire with sharp eyes. Reggie paced near the gate, chest puffed, sensing something brewing. He was ready. So was I. Back at the house, I pulled out a box untouched. Since the last county fair, motion-activated cameras and mounts. I spent the afternoon rigging them around the barn, coop, fence posts, even inside a fake hay bale. The farm became a surveillance fortress, all linked to my laptop via a mobile hotspot. I called it Hen Vision. Anyone who dared trespass would be caught in crisp HD. That evening, after Karen's crew cleared out, leaving crushed petals, plastic cups, and a broken chair, I reviewed the footage. One clip stopped me cold. Karen, alone after the others left, crept toward my barn. She leaned close to the side wall, peered through a gap, and whispered something I couldn't catch. Then she wedged a laminated sign between the boards. I zoomed in, reserved for HOA community functions, approved access. She was staking a claim on my barn, marking it as her domain. The next morning, I marched out, tore the sign down, and tossed it into the pig pen, where a nosy hen named Daisy shredded it in seconds. Then I got to work. If Karen wanted to play dirty, she'd learn I didn't just raise chickens. I commanded them. Over the years, I'd trained a few roosters with Fulan using feed rewards and subtle hand cues. It started as a lark, became practical, and now it was my secret weapon. I drilled Reggie and 3 others on 2 signals, one for charge, another for surround. Roosters are sharper than folks realize, especially when sunflower seeds and stale bread are on the line. It took mere hours to retrain them. Afternoon, I ran a test. I stood by the barn, gave the first signal. Reggie strode forward. The second signal, the others followed, forming a tight semicircle around me. They moved like a SWAT team. Calling them just chickens felt laughable. They were disciplined, swift, and fiercely protective. All I needed was a target, and that target arrived fast. Saturday morning, Karen rolled in with flyers hyping rustic yoga by the barn and a guest appearance by a local influencer. They spread yoga mats across my hayloading dock, some guests toting yappy dogs. It was a parade of ignorance, barefoot city folks prancing near the manure pile. I made my call. No more warnings, no more signs. It was time for Operation Featherstorm. I headed to the barn. The roosters were restless, sensing the disruption. I gave the signal. The doors groaned open, and Reggie emerged like a gladiator unleashed. Wings flaring, crowing so fiercely 2 yoga moms shrieked mid-downward dog. The others followed, not attacking, just forming a slow, menacing ring around the mats. Karen shouted about animal control, but her voice cracked as Reggie hopped onto a mat and stabbed a water bottle. Then chaos erupted. One rooster lunged for a neon pink scarf. Another soared, toppling the speaker. Dogs yipped, women screamed, and one guest slipped, landing in soggy hay. I watched from the fence, sipping tea, unruffled. No one was hurt. No one was chased. But no one would forget. Karen stormed over, hair wild, sunglasses askew, jabbing a manicured finger in my face. "This is harassment! I'll have your birds seized! I'll get you fined!" I raised an eyebrow. "They're free range. They live here. You don't." Her mouth gaped, speechless. She stomped off, mud on her heels, a rooster feather snagged in her hat. That evening, an official HOA envelope arrived, delivered by a nervous teen who wanted no part of this feud. Inside, a complaint about excessive animal aggression demanding an immediate review. I framed it beside the first letter. Reggie eyed both, gave a smug cluck, and I knew we were just warming up. She thought this was about chickens. It wasn't. It was about land, respect, and picking a fight with the wrong farmer. A week passed without a single SUV on the gravel path. I dared to hope the rooster riot had worked. Karen went quiet, the HOA newsletter skipped barn events, and the bunting scraps vanished from my trees. It was peaceful. Too peaceful. Then, on a Monday morning, as I sipped coffee amid crowing roosters and pigs scrambling for breakfast, I found a notice pinned to my gate. Not a friendly note, but a typed HOA logo decree dripping with bureaucratic venom. It summoned me to a formal HOA review for public safety violations, hostile animal conditions, and unsanitary event disruption. The hearing was set for the community center. They weren't just whining, they were going legal. Carried the notice to the kitchen, set it on the table, and stared at it as the rooster's distant crows thrummed like war drums. Reggie paced the fence, sensing the stakes. The absurdity hit me. Karen had trespassed, thrown unauthorized parties, tried to claim my barn, and now she was painting me as the villain, a crazed farmer with rogue poultry. I nearly laughed, but knew better than to underestimate her. Karen wasn't just entitled, she was cunning. This wasn't a spat anymore. It was politics. On hearing day, I didn't dress up, just work jeans, straw-dusted boots, and a shirt with only 2 missing buttons. I brought a thumb drive loaded with footage, every SUV, every trespass, every flyer nailed to my trees. And one more thing, a blown-up photo of Reggie with a cartoon bubble. Get off my lawn. The community center was packed. Karen sat at the head table, flanked by bored-looking HOA board members in a peach suit with a stack of statements. She stood as I entered, cleared her throat, and unleashed her tirade. I'd created a hostile environment, endangered residents, let untrained animals roam, and orchestrated a targeted poultry assault on a peaceful event. When she said militant poultry, someone in the back coughed, a stifled laugh. I let her rant, piling on every absurd claim. When the panel turned to me, I slid my thumb drive across the table and said, "Watch these clips. I live on a farm. These aren't pets. They're livestock on my land, doing what they've always done. Existing." The screen flickered to life. Clip after clip rolled. Karen's Lexus clogging the barn. Her guests decorating without permission. Dogs chasing chickens. Her flyers, her yoga mats, her shrieks when Reggie glanced her way. The final clip showed her sneaking a reserved sign onto my barn, whispering, "This will be perfect once we take over." The room went silent, deafeningly. So, Karen's smile dissolved. A board member, an older man, rubbed his temples and muttered, "Oh, good Lord." Another turned to Karen and asked, "Did you get permission for any of this?" She fumbled, deflected, blamed a community misunderstanding, but the damage was done. Then came a curveball. Frank, the grizzled mailman with a mustache a scrub brush, stood up. "I've delivered to this farm for 17 years, no issues, until she started blocking paths and acting like she owns the county." He recounted tossing mail over a gate because Karen's car blocked the way. The board nodded, thanked him. Karen stared at the floor, wishing it would swallow her. The verdict was swift. Complaint dismissed. The HOA had no authority over private farmland. They cautioned Karen on trespassing and misuse of community titles. I was free to go. But as I passed her, she hissed, "You won't win forever. This isn't over." I didn't reply. Reggie was waiting at home. That night, something felt off. Locking the barn, I spotted fresh boot prints near the back gate. The motion sensor light flickered, then held steady. I patrolled the perimeter and found a sticky puddle by the barn doors, corn syrup and something sour. Someone had tried to lure the roosters out. Karen wasn't stopping at paperwork. She was escalating to sabotage. She'd been humiliated publicly and was now striking in secret. I didn't flinch. I fortified. Over 2 days, I installed a perimeter of motion-activated alarms, blinding lights, blaring sirens, even water jets. I set decoy feed near the gate, rigged with hidden sensors. Anyone stepping there would get a rude awakening. The roosters were honed, no charging without my signal, but alert, territorial, ready. Karen had taken the fight to the shadows, but I wasn't scared of the dark. Let her try. The barn wasn't just a structure. It was a stronghold, guarded by feathers, claws, and a grudge. The next few nights buzzed with tension. The roosters sensed it, their sunrise crows sharp and wary. They huddled near the barn entrance at odd hours. Reggie perched on the highest roost before dawn, scanning the yard like a sentinel. I slept lightly, boots by the door, the sensor monitor humming beside my bed. Karen wouldn't quit. When her public schemes failed, she'd go dirtier, reckless. It started again one evening, just after sunset. Refilling feed buckets, I heard a sensor ping. The monitor showed nothing at first, just shadows by the fence. Then a flicker. A dark-clad figure ducked near the gate, crawling along the fence. I didn't need HD to know it was Karen, or her proxy back and sneaking. I grabbed a flashlight and phone, slipped out the back, moving silently to avoid spooking the birds. As I neared, the figure hit a sensor. A blaze of light flooded the field, and there she was. Karen, crouching with a spray paint can, frozen like a thief in a spotlight. Our eyes locked. Her smugness melted into horror, faster than Reggie pounces on a bug. Then the showstopper. A woof. Second sensor tripped. A siren pierced the night, followed by a torrent of water from the jets. Karen screeched, stumbling back, soaked and disoriented. The barn doors burst open, not by me, but because Reggie had mastered the latch. 23 roosters charged, wings thundering, feathers flying. Karen bolted, slipping in mud, her spray can cartwheeling into the air. The roosters, fueled by weeks of chaos, gave chase. Not to harm, but to defend their turf. She made it. To her Lexus, parked sloppily again, then tripped on a hose, sprawling across the gravel. As she scrambled up, Reggie leaped onto her hood, wings flapping, crowing so loud it echoed county-wide. Her keys clattered to the ground. I strolled up, phone recording, and said, "Looks like you dropped something." Karen stood, drenched, shaking, rooster feathers tangled in her hoodie, eyes wild like she'd escaped a slasher flick. I offered her keys, still filming. She didn't take them, just ran, slipping again, vanishing into the dark. Her Lexus sat, abandoned for 3 hours until the cops arrived. I'd already called them, showed the footage. They picked Karen up at her house 30 minutes later, calling her out from her porch. She answered the door, still in the soaked hoodie, looking like a drowned raccoon. Officer Hartley, a local who got the lay of the land, couldn't hide his grin. When Reggie hit the hood in the video, Hartley laughed. A full belly shaking. Roar. She tried to vandalize a barn, he chuckled, and got run off by an elite poultry squad. Best call I've had all week. Karen was cited for trespassing, attempted vandalism, and unlawful entry. She claimed misunderstanding, but the spray can, hoodie, and footage begged to differ. By morning, the video leaked. Someone at HOA Karen. The station shared it, and it exploded online. Titled, "HOA Karen Gets Ambushed by Tactical Roosters," it went viral. My phone buzzed nonstop. Local news wanted interviews. A talk show pitched Reggie as a guest. Kids flocked to my fence with "Cluck Justice" signs. One guy brought a framed Reggie portrait, asking for an autograph. I was speechless. Karen vanished from public view. No board meetings, no Lexus, no flyers. Her silence roared louder than her complaints. But I didn't relax. Silence wasn't surrender. It was regrouping. I kept the sensors live, the roosters sharp, the cameras rolling. A week after the video blew up, an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside, a photoshopped photo of Karen on a bench, surrounded by cartoon chickens in sunglasses, with "Cluck around and find out" in Comic Sans above her. I didn't know who sent it, but it earned a spot beside the framed HOA letters. Reggie eyed it, clucked once, and strutted out with unmatched swagger. The farm became legend. Kids on bikes waved as they passed. Someone painted a mural on the town feed store. Reggie atop a Lexus, an American flag in his beak. The HOA, still limping along, was publicly shamed. Karen's credibility in tatters. The roosters weren't just animals. They were emblems of defiance, of protecting what's yours with feathers, flair, and fury. And me? I was just their farmer, the guy who trusted his birds and let the clucking chaos do the talking. The town couldn't let it go. At a council meeting, a councilman quipped, "Why not make it official and declare a Reggie Day?" Everyone laughed, but someone doubled down. No, seriously, we should. Weeks later, the mayor rolled up to my farm with a pitch. A community festival called Rooster Freedom Day, with a parade, vendor stalls, and a ceremonial rooster strut. I thought it was another joke, but they were dead serious, and the town was all in. I agreed, with rules. No touching the barn, no bothering the roosters, and Karen was banned, even if she showed up in a chicken costume. The mayor chuckled. That's a no-brainer. Planning kicked off fast. The farm morphed into a mix of carnival and fortress. Volunteers built a wooden stage. Kids painted signs. Someone crafted paper hats for the roosters, though Reggie flat out refused his. On festival day, hundreds gathered along the dirt path. Phones out. Lawn chairs unfolded. Cluck around and find out shirts everywhere. The main event was the Rooster Parade. I swung open the barn doors, gave the now legendary signal, and out they marched. Reggie at the helm, leading the flock in a stately line across the field. A speaker blared a remix of their viral video. The crowd roared, kids clapped, confetti rained down, and a few old-timers wept with laughter. It was absurd, but perfect. Not just a party, but a tribute to standing firm, defending your own, and doing it without fists or fury. Just feathers, timing, and a rooster who knew when to crow. As the sun dipped and folks packed up their chairs and funnel cake crumbs, I sat on the porch, soaking in the quiet triumph. The barn gleamed, the roosters pecked at stray popcorn, and a final banner swayed between the trees. The peckening. A nod to the original clash. Reggie perched on my lap, blinking slowly, wise and content in that strange rooster way. I scratched his neck and said, "You did good, soldier." The next week, life settled. The crowds faded, the buzz dimmed, but the respect lingered. No one dared near the barn. No one questioned who owned the land or what rules applied. The HOA rewrote their handbook, stating clearly that private farmland was beyond their reach, a fact that should have been obvious, but was now carved in bold legalese, thanks to Karen's stunts. A board member mailed me a note. "On behalf of the sane members of this HOA, thank you for your patience and your poultry." Karen never resurfaced. Her house hit the market, and word was she'd fled to a new development in a nearby town. She tried joining their HOA, but a Google search pulled up the Rooster video first, and her application tanked. Her legacy was cemented, delivered by beak and claw, inescapable. Some lessons stick. As for me, I kept farming. Life returned to dawn wake-ups and long days, but with a new spark. Passers-by waved more, kids asked about the animals, and so often, a chicken-themed gift appeared on my porch. A painted feather, a carved rooster, even a mug reading "Property of Reggie" with a tiny crown above his name. I never saw myself as a hero or a rebel leader. All I wanted was to work my land and tend my animals. But sometimes, life shoves you into a fight where you have to draw a line, even if it's with birdseed and a stubborn rooster by your side. And when that happens, you don't whisper or retreat. You flap, you crow, and you show them that even the smallest farm has the loudest voice when it matters.